Hello guys, this is Feeding Frenzy 91 and I'd like to bring you a new series I call Walking Dead Character Bios, where I dismember the group members of Walking Dead and discuss why they were important, what their personalities like, and just really what they did in the game. I'm gonna start from who died first, who I think is still alive. So let's start the ball rolling with Doug and Carly. Now, I know what you're thinking. One of them technically could have died in episode 3. But since both of them could have died in episode 1, I'm going to keep them at the top of the list of those dead. So, with I know that when that choice that you had to make in episode 1 was the first difficult choice, which was really good. It was really good to give us a choice where we had to pick one or the other. It wasn't where you could get both or where no matter what you happen, the same thing would happen. But this scene in particular is so fake to me. I mean, Doug can simply duck down while Carly can simply step on this guy's face. Really, I mean, these two are just helpless. Anyway, since I know Carly was the one that everybody loved and wanted to pick, why don't we start the ball rolling with Doug?
What's up?
Doug was a really cool character in the sense that he was very smart, very intelligent. Him and Carly are literally polar opposites. Doug, as we all know, is not good with zombies, but Carly is. Now, with Doug, he is good at reading people, reading things, and he really shows his smartness very early on in the game.
I think it might be more than a couple days before all this gets sorted out.
But Doug also is more than just smart. He also has skills which are very useful throughout the game, such as he is the one with you when you find your brother, and he's able to, of course, use the remote and get the TVs working, which is very nice. It just shows how good he was at well, he said he memorized the codes. It kind of shows a lack of life, but other than that, it really shows how smart this guy was. Doug also has a vast knowledge of various items throughout the game which Carly does not possess. But in the words of Clementine,
He knows things.
which prove useful throughout the chapters, most of them anyway. In all honesty, not Doug's knowledge does not prove useful through, especially chapter 3, but I'll get to that a bit later when I talk about Doug in chapter 3. Well, other than that, Doug is not good with zombies. I mean, he is just not good with zombies.
Man, that was close.
Close to what? You actually having to fight them, Doug? Oh, that would have been terrible, wouldn't it have? Anyway, Doug's also. I'm not sure if Doug has ever killed a zombie. If any of you know, can you tell me, please? Because I don't think Doug ever killed a zombie in this whole game. Because I'm playing the game again, and I'm like, did Doug ever kill a zombie? Anyway, other than that, Doug's skills really prove useful in episode 2.
Leave it to Doug to rig up a warning system out of garbage.
But even in episode 2, the warning system is just an add-on. It's not something that really makes Doug specifically unique. The warning system really should have worked in episode 3. In episode 3, if y'all notice, they still get captured by the bandits even if the warning system pulls through. Because, I mean, you hear the warning bell, but then when you look outside, everybody still has the bandits. I would have really liked if in episode 3, because of Doug's warning system, they were warned that the bandits were coming and that they would have been able to actually, defend themselves. Like, it would have been different. Maybe they would have still gotten caught, but it would have been a different experience. It wouldn't have just been, oh, he had a warning, but it doesn't make a difference. Even though he has a warning, we bandits still catch all of them and take their guns and put them on the ground. And it's just like, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. Just like this doesn't help us.
Sorry.
Doug was comic relief, though. He was pretty good comic relief through the whole story, actually. But episode 3 is where Doug really falls short. Doug is just there. There's nothing really. I mean, he's helping with the wall, but still, there's nothing that really pulls you into thinking, this really makes a difference in the gameplay, other than the fact that it just takes away from what Carly would have given you in episode 3. I mean, Doug, he does explain certain things, like he explains what the flashlight is and how you use charcoal instead of chalk, but at the same time, it doesn't really do much for me, at least. If it did better for you, then you can tell me, but to me, Doug was just. In episode 3, they were like, alright, we saved Doug, we don't have a part for him, so let's just put him there. And that's what I feel. Does anybody else also kind of feel that, like, Doug was just an added character. Like, he was not like anybody else feel that Carly was actually supposed to be the only character there, and they added Doug in just to have a pick at the first episode, pick who to live or die. Really, when you think about it, Doug is just there in episode 3. There is almost nothing that he does. He doesn't really give much advice. Now, it is true that Lee can ask Lily if Doug is sad, but that really doesn't add much at all. It just doesn't. Anyway, I've talked about 5 minutes about Doug, so why don't we move on to what everybody's waiting for? The character who got chosen 79% of the time. The one we all know and love, our dear Carly. Now, Carly is first seen at the drugstore. She saves the group from being mauled by walkers. Glenn is with her, which is a very nice cameo, but let's not focus on him. Let's get back to Carly. Carly feels like she was really well developed. Her character is very deep. Her character is very open. Her character is, as I said before, the polar opposite of Doug. Carly is the first to jump into an argument. Now, truth be told, even though she does that, we all know that she sometimes just jumps out just as quick as she jumps in. But the fact that she jumps in, well, as we can see, Doug just waits on the side, really proves the difference she is than him, how much different they are. Now, Carly, anybody else really feel like the directors did this when it came to Carly? Hey, I got this girl finished. Now what? Hey, wait a minute. Weren't we supposed to pick between two people? She's like, alright, I'll add a nerd in there just for fun. And that nerd was Doug. I feel like Carly was supposed to be the real character in the game and Doug was just an afterthought. That's how I feel. If you guys feel differently, you can tell me. Now, when you first meet Carly, the first thing that intrigues you about this girl is that she seems very suspicious of Lee. She does, like even before she confronts him in the office.
How do you know that's an office?
Well, I know, so I guess Lee would know. Anyway, but other than that, she had that really fun minigame in the pharmacy, which Doug had none of. You could technically count Doug as get the keys, but that's a part of the main quest. Fixing the radio for Carly was actually a very fun minigame, which people enjoyed, and if you fixed it, it became a running gag for the whole kind of series, which actually added a lot more to her character development than it did to Doug's. Doug didn't really have a running gag. He was a running gag in the sense that he was comic relief. But other than that, there was nothing really to put on Doug that Carly didn't have. But in the end, Carly's character just seems much more developed than Doug's, which I'm sorry, Doug, but this just seems, it just seems much more developed. Now, Carly, as I said before, she's a straight shot. She knows her way around that gun, that pistol, the Glock that she carries. What she lacks is what Doug has. She lacks his skill. She has no knowledge of a lot of things. Other than knowing Lee is the murderer because she was a reporter, she seems to be actually pretty dumb when it comes to a lot. The first thing, as I mentioned before, would be the radio.
You know that there are no batteries in that thing?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No.
Carly, however, still gives a lot more story to the character than Doug does. This is due to on a large part that Carly knows that Lee is a convicted killer, which he revealed to him.
I know who you are.
But what may have thought to be a bad thing at first actually ended up being a good thing down the road. Because Carly knew you were a convicted killer, it really helped with her character development. The player could talk to Carly about it. He could even talk about the murder. If Carly's not there, you don't even realize that what happened between Lee and the senator. Except when you talk to the stranger at the end game, but still, it really added to the story. Doug's conversations seem so bland, while Carly's conversations are meaningful. She's actually able to give advice on who to give food to, which I would have thought would have been perfect to give Doug. He's a smart guy. Why would you give that to someone who obviously doesn't know as much as, and obviously has more of a role in the story already? She doesn't have to be the one to advise Lee who to give food to. But when it comes to people, it seems like Carly is better in general. Even in episode 3, she seems to know more about Lily. And unlike Doug, Carly is not afraid to get involved in group politics.
Come on, you're being dramatic. Everything always turns into a power struggle between you two. I'm not going to be a part of that.
And also, episode 3 is where Doug falls flat, Carly really shines. This whole scene of Lee being able to tell people who he is really added something to the story that it just felt like when you played with Doug, that just took a huge part of it away. Because not being able to tell people who you are, not because you don't want to, but because you picked the different character of the game at the beginning, it was just felt unfair. But at the same time, it really gave Carly so much more to the story than Doug. I just really feel that these creators were thinking that let's make Carly the real main character here. Let's give Doug a few lines, but that's all we'll give him. I mean, let's face it. The death scene of Carly was just. Did you guys not see the reactions? The reactions to Carly's death were huge, while the reactions to Doug's death were minimal. Why? Because this scene here was so dramatic. It felt like it had a purpose. It felt like there was a reason Lily was killing Carly, not like there was a reason Lily was killing Doug. Alright, now that I've done that, let's just take a moment to compare the two. There was this versus this.
I got him!
There was this versus this. At least Doug had this.
Set up trip lines at 4 locations, and each one triggers one of these 4 bells. So
we'll know where they are and how long we have. Smart.
And he also had this.
it's just a laser pointer I picked up during our last trip to the drugstore.
But then again, Carly had this. While Doug was bothering us with this.
You know, a piece of charcoal is a suitable alternative depending on your marking surface. Since we're on the subject, did you know that while chalk is traditionally known to be calcium carbonate, what's often used in classrooms is actually made of gypsum thanks to favorable domestic mining conditions?
Doug, I did not know that.
Happy to be of service.
Even Doug's death scene is not as much as Carly's. Carly's death scene had purpose. It had a place. Doug's death scene just seems to be like, let's get rid of Doug. It just didn't make as much sense as Carly's. I mean, even Doug doesn't want you to choose him. I mean, look what he says.
I just wish you would have picked her.
See, so even Doug knows that he was a second-hand character and Carly was the real deal, or the real McCoy. Anyway, so I've gone on about 12 minutes for this, so to wrap it up, Carly just seemed more like a character in the Walking Dead than Doug did. Doug seemed like he was just there half the time when Carly was actually doing things. She had a purpose, it seems like, in the game. Doug was more of just comic relief and more just being there. Alright, well, I guess that's it. Carly wins in the end. Anyway, in my next video, I'll be having the next character, which y'all can probably guess who it is, but I'm not going to tell you. And y'all tell me how I did. This is my first time doing this. I know I'm probably not the best. But anyway, tell me how I did in this. Like, comment, subscribe, and God bless.